My warmest greetings to the participants of this research conference by Eurasia and also to the members of the Teaching and Education Research Association, or TERA. So to the participants, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because we have different timelines in the different parts of the world. So I am expressing my gratitude to the invitation extended to me by Dr. Charles to give you my topic on a very relevant issue right now in our academic community. So if I may share my slide, okay. By the way, I am Dr. Jose Elmer Oficiar from the Philippines. I've been teaching in our institution, the University of Mindanao Tagum branch, for 13 years. And out of my experience as a teacher, last year and progressing until now is one of the most challenging, actually. It's very unique experience that I had. So my topic actually for today that I'm going to share to you is teaching during the pandemic, insights of educational resiliency facing COVID-19. This is somewhat of a very unique topic, I should say, because this is very unconventional on the types of presentations that we had in a research conference. I opted to present this because I felt that there's a need that I need to share things based on my experience as a teacher, particularly in the Philippines, during the crisis which impacted the world. So later on, I'll be giving you some insights, the experiences of teachers like me in my country, and how we face uh, COVID-19, the pandemic, the lockdown, until this very day. So before, based on the pictures, we have enjoyed a lot about life. We enjoyed going to parties, traveling, um, going to the salons, as what I have presented here, and also having our leisure time. So these are the things that we enjoy before everything changes. And it does. This is the day our world changes. It's the news about COVID-19 started in the last part of December in China, wherein there are cases of a virus that time that they had said it, and then it erupted globally, and it affected very individuals, many individuals, and in some parts of the world are more devastating. Here in the Philippines, since we are somewhat closer to proximity in terms of distance to China, we are very much alarmed because before we have endured uh, uh, somewhat crisis level of viruses like the SARS and the AH1N1. But this one is something that is very new to us. And then every day became a scene of fear and anxiety. This actually happened in January, wherein cases erupted in Wuhan, China. And then we've seen in the news some horrific, I should say, horrific scenes of people dying on the streets. These are things that are so alarming, and we are praying for China that time that they can be able to overcome this. And never in our mind that it will lead to what it is right now. It would lead to a lockdown and it will become a pandemic. What we have seen on these pictures are some of the recounts, some of the things that we see that is happening in China. Well, everything is a scene of fear. Everyone is so alarmed. All governments in the world are really alarmed on what is happening back then. Then the world is on hold. In the Philippines, this happened in March 16. Okay? And I really could not forget the date. And during this time, the world is on lockdown. Majority of the countries have declared for a lockdown because of the rise of cases of COVID-19. And everyone is so uncertain. And in the Philippines, yeah, it happened March 16. I really could not forget the date because 2 days prior to that, actually 3 days prior to that, that's March 13, we still had our classes. And in my institution, uh, the the local government really opted to force us to stop our classes because back then people are so stubborn. We really do not know whether it's true, whether is it really here. We only have few cases in the capital, in the nation's capital, in Manila, and then travel became so difficult, especially in the domestic travel. And that time, March 16, marks a very devastating day for us in the Philippines because that's the time that the entire country declared for a lockdown. And people are really stunned and they're still in doubts and they're thinking that this would last for only 14 days or for a month or so. Then days became months and months became a year and the uncertainty became so so much significant and and it really impacted a lot of people. The first 14 days is somewhat an experience, I should say, because families were able to bond again. Parents have now time to spend with their children because they're working at home. In my case, since I'm living alone in my house, so I spent the lockdown alone. And the worst thing is, during March 16, the first schedule of the lockdown, I was one of those who were under the person under monitoring because I was exposed to a person who went to the nation's capital. And during that time, the protocol dictates that all those who were exposed to persons who got positive should stay at home and they'll be monitored. And my experience for the first 14 days is full of anxiety, full of fear, because I don't know if I have contracted the virus. Although I had symptoms, I had a severe cold and I have very bad headache, and I was advised just to stay at home. And that time, the swab tests were not available in certain countries, and in the Philippines, it's not an excuse. And we still don't have that access to the swab test. And what I had experienced is I'm like thinking in a blank, like I don't know what is happening. Am I really having these symptoms? Am I there? I don't know. So it's full of uncertainty in the first 14 days. And luckily, after the 3 days of my symptoms, it subsided and I was declared to be negative during that time. Okay. And yes, the waiting and the uncertainty is real. Like everyone is questioning when will it stop and when will we be open again. And in the case of the Philippines, it started in March 16 and it reopened in the end of May, the first week of June. So there are 2.5 months of grueling thinking of what is happening. Will there be jobs? And I heard in some people they received emails that they were laid off because of businesses, businesses that were shutting down because of the lockdown. It really impacted the economy. And in the case of the academe, in our case, during these 2.5 months, we were tasked to make our instruction materials in preparation for the online class. So like modules, we're making modules because the mandate that time is blended learning for college education, for higher education. And for DepEd, they're also making up modules for students, you know, for elementary and high school. The challenge of reopening. This happened actually in the first week of June. And it is a challenge because everyone is so excited to go out, but there are limitations. The only establishments that were open during the reopening are actually the pharmacies and groceries, nothing more. Okay, the restaurants opened just after that, like weeks after the reopening. So it's quite challenging for those who still have jobs and they need to go on running errands for their duties in their jobs. And people are lining up, people are wearing masks, shields, face shields. In the Philippines is very unique because aside from wearing masks, we are really required to wear face shields when we go to establishments, when we enter establishments. But in my talk, I have given you like an overview of the pandemic. But today's talk is about a journey. It's about my experience as a teacher and my self-realization about this situation. During the time of the pandemic, during those first months, my research team actually conducted a simple qualitative research. We interviewed some teachers on their experiences and the challenges that they have faced during the COVID-19. What are the lessons that they have learned as teachers, as human beings, you know, facing this crisis. So it is a journey because I felt that this is something that is relevant that I really need to share. Uh, I opted to make this talk, this presentation as it is. For some, maybe it's simple, but I felt that there's a need for our voices to be heard, and the unique experiences in the Philippines should be heard by the international community to know how we faced COVID-19, how we show our resiliency. Being resilient is a unique character for Filipinos. We've always faced year after year challenges. We've faced typhoons every year, many typhoons every year, earthquakes, in fact, because we are in the ring of fire, Pacific Ring of Fire. So we have endured all this, and it made our character so resilient. And I felt that during this unique crisis, the pandemic of COVID-19, there's a need for me to share that. Okay. So it started during the lockdown when we sent our students to homes. And it is during this time that is still a challenge because in our institution, most of our students are living from the provinces. So Tagum City is a capital of a province. It's like a prefecture, it's like a region, it's like a district. In some countries, it's like that. So this is the melting pot of schools, of institutions where students go for college education. And during the time of the pandemic, we are compelled to really send our students to go home. So it happened in March 13. And students going home during the lockdown is a scene, I should say. If you look at the pictures, these are pictures taken from different parts of the Philippines during the time of the first implementation of the lockdown in March 16. But in March 13, students are already traveling. That's Friday. And the weekends like Saturdays and Sundays, this is the scene of the bus terminals, the airports, wherein many people are going home. If you notice, there are no social distancing that is happening, and there's a risk for the virus to spread. And it did. It did eventually. After how many days, it showed that because of this scenario, because of this situation, it really increased the number of positive individuals of the virus. Then after that, module making also became a challenge. In the Department of Education, the Department of Education actually oversees the elementary and the secondary education sector. For college and tertiary education, we belong to the Commission in Higher Education, or the CHED. That is the case in the Philippines. And both agencies really opted to use blended learning, and we are advised to make our modules. In the case of tertiary education teachers like us, college teachers, we are, it's somewhat more easier on our part because we already have our teaching materials available. What we need to do is just to convert it to a modular type of instruction material. But in the case of those teachers teaching in the secondary and elementary education, it is more challenging because there are challenges of books before that. This is a challenge for teachers in my country. And then much more that they are compelled to make the module. The problem that we encountered is the availability of papers. The printing materials, the printing machine, the machinery. So the module was made by batch, by quarter. So there are 4 quarters in a year, and the teachers are really working hard trying to make these modules. And when it is an emergency situation, the quality of the instruction material also sacrificed. So the teachers, when we interview them, they said that some of the materials really are not checked. They are really not content validated. So some of the contents are actually copy pasted from certain materials. It's not well checked. Okay, so they really have a problem on that aspect. So module making became a challenge, as well as the challenges in distribution. In my case, I'm teaching in college. We really need to distribute the modules to the students. And what we did is that we assigned students by batch to come to school so that they can receive the modules. And we also opened our learning management system, and we use the different platforms like Zoom and also Google Meet for our online classes. But sad to say, in the Philippines, it is a common situation that we have problems with internet connectivity, especially for those students who are living in provinces. And in my institution, we are catering such students who are living in provinces, and they have a problem with connectivity with the internet connection. And so we really have to adjust on that situation. In the case of those teachers teaching in the secondary and elementary education, they required parents to come to school and get the module so that they can distribute it. The problem here is that they also encounter with fear, because during this time, swab tests is still not available. In the Philippines, they have a minimal number of swab tests. And so people are fearing that they could contract the virus. And during that time, especially going to the groceries, we are really required to wear our gloves. So if you can see in the picture, one of the teachers wearing a glove aside from the face mask. And then after that, they're also required to wear face shields. This is the first month actually the distribution. This happened in June. And then the online classes. If you notice in the picture, teachers are also wearing face shields. So this is the face shield that I'm talking about. And the challenge there is connectivity, the internet availability. So the internet companies in our country really opted to boost their signal, and so that we can really provide our students the kind of instruction that we can give to them, the instruction that at least can compensate on what is lacking based on the situation. And also in the secondary and elementary education, some teachers opted to use the television. So there are lessons in televisions. Since majority of Filipinos own television sets, so the teachers in the Department of Education really gave their somewhat a different side of teaching, like a host, like a TV host. So they are teaching in televisions and also radio in some parts, because in the 70s and 80s, it is very common in the Philippines to have educational shows in radio. And then eventually in the 90s, we have educational shows in television. So it is somewhat kind of a retrospect on what is happening before. So we just tried to rebirth, a renaissance of the uh, television shows with educational topics and all about certain subjects. And parents became the strong support for education. That's true, because for the Department of Education in the secondary and elementary education, since everything is pure modular and some supports are in televisions, parents became one of the factors in really fulfilling their goal to make sure that that the children are still learning at home. But it is also have a setback based on our interviews with teachers, that there are some parents who really opted not to help their children. Some have they have uh, they were not a graduate of secondary education, especially to those impoverished areas. So teachers really need to do tutorials going once a week to the students, because the parents could not fulfill the task because they themselves are challenged educationally. So teachers need to step up on that aspect. Challenges faced in education. We are combating a different kind of work stress. Yes, teaching is somewhat stressful, but this time around during the pandemic, it is a different kind of stress. We are facing a screen. We are teaching on a screen. Sometimes students are unresponsive, and you really need to motivate them, invigorate them during the discussion, because they themselves are so stressed out with what is happening. And you are dealing with your own stress and you're helping students to cope up as well. It's a different kind of stress, work stress. And you are always staying at home. Like in my case, I'm alone at home. So I'm facing all this alone. Okay. So it is quite tasky in my part to really face the online class. And connectivity, as what I've said earlier, became a problem. Online connections, we have an internet problem. I guess in some parts of the world also has this problem. And if you opted to do online classes, this can be a challenge in our part, since we have a problem with the internet connection. And assessment became a challenge as well. When we interviewed teachers, they said that there are issues of cheating. Plagiarism became an issue because students submit papers, but they use online, although plagiarism is also a problem during face-to-face classes. But in this case, it's more rampant. And unacceptable excuses. Some students use the lockdowns, the mandatory quarantines for those who were exposed as an excuse, knowing that we are only using online classes. We face all this during this crisis. And unfinished learning materials. The availability of the modules. In depth ed, they faced a crisis of paper, the availability of paper to print these modules. In our case, is we are facing a problem with printing machines, because printing machines drop down, and we need to order them and ship them, and shipping became a problem as well because it will take months because of the lockdowns and the protocols that we are following. And it is a rushed learning contents. So when it is rushed, of course, quality is sacrificed. And some institutions really copy pasted some of the contents because that's the only resort you can do with a limited time that was given to make these modules. And parents as well became a factor because some modules are answered by parents. Okay, since and teachers have really seen this as a problem. But what are the valuable lessons during the crisis? What are the lessons that these teachers have realized during the pandemic, during the lockdowns? What have they learned? Their insights on this. So when we interviewed them, most of them said that death is really inevitable. Many of those who have interviewed have lost a loved one in COVID-19. Based on my experience, I lost my grandmother. She's 97 and she died of COVID-19 because she was exposed to my uncle who contracted the virus. And yeah, death is inevitable. We've seen people that we knew died of COVID-19. Some of our students that we knew contracted the virus and they have pre-existing medical conditions and they lost the battle with COVID-19. Some teachers also realized the value of money, the importance of having a saving, time, the value of time, saving, and the importance of having an emergency fund for crisis like this, the importance of health. Yeah, I have shown my picture. Please allow me to share that as well. I've shared my picture. This picture actually in the left side of my comparison myself was the Eurasia Research Conference in 2019. And I was what, in terms of pounds, I was like 150, I think, 170. In kilos, I am 97. Yeah, 97. Do add up the math. So 97 kilos. And by June 9 of 2020, during the lockdown, I opted to make a shift and I need to be healthy because that's one of the things that is a factor for you to survive COVID-19. You really need to be healthy. So I shred all those fats and really live healthy, exercise. And right now I am going 60 kilos. So I lost all those kilos and those pounds for health purposes. Yeah, for health purposes. So that I can be able to survive if ever I'll be contracting the virus. And then we found faith. They found faith, spirituality, and hope amidst all this situation. I found this hope because, to be honest with you, if I may share, I was exposed by a positive individual 5 times. I was declared a person under monitoring for 5 times COVID-19. Yeah, and in the 5th time, I was swab test because the case is so severe that I really need to be swab tested. And you know, faith of God, by the grace of God, I got negative. And right now, I've already finished my vaccination. I got my 2nd dose last week, and I mean my first dose last week, and 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And then actually during this conference, this is actually my schedule for my 2nd dose. And my case is a bit different because I have a pre-existing condition that I really could not share. And I was advised to stay in the hospital for during that duration. Actually, this time when this will be aired in our conference, I'll be in the hospital. And yeah, waiting for my 2nd dose of the vaccine. And there is hope. There's always hope, and we always have that hope. The Filipinos are known to be individuals who always smile, who always has hope in their hearts. And that's why we are known to be so resilient amidst all the odds. Yeah, we survive and we fight. And the importance of positive optimism. This was coined by one of the participants in our research, wherein he mentioned that we need to have positive optimism. To be optimistic is sometimes you would think negatively. You would always say, no, oh, At least I don't have the virus, so it is being optimistic. But positive optimism is showing positivity in life, showing positivity to people, helping people. During the time of the pandemic, people became very helpful to each other. We have people donating food to those individuals who really could not afford it, who lost their jobs. In my case, when our salary was cut to half of the monthly compensations that we have, some people are really helping out, helping each other. Okay, so that's how we show positive optimism. And then there's hope. We have the vaccine already. The inoculation is ongoing. It is really good that we have this opportunity that we can be protected, at least in a certain percentage from the virus, avoiding hospitalization. So this hope gives us that strong feeling that all this will end at a certain point, that we can see each other face to face, that we can talk to each other, that we can interact to each other face to face. And this is our way to survive. From the picture, we saw this woman taking off her mask, and some people who are now traveling. I love to travel, and this really is more challenging in my part to stay home, you know, to wait it out until it will end. And it's been more than a year, and there is that optimism that we will survive all this. All this will just end. And tomorrow, yeah, we will win coronavirus. We will win. And we will be able to emerge once again as a global nation wherein we survive this pandemic. And so that ends my presentation. I hope you have, in a way, been able to have learned something out from it. Although it is so simple in my perspective, but I know there's something there. There's something that we can appreciate in a small way. And I thank you for the time, for this opportunity. Thank you, Eurasia. Thank you, Dr. Charles, for this opportunity. And hope to see you in some of the conferences of Eurasia in the future, face to face. Thank you, everybody, and God bless.